Hi there, I'm John Kelly. I'm a musician and songwriter of about 30 years now actually. What I'm going to share with you is part technical stuff, but actually more so it's about how I've been able to engage with my followers and supporters who I'm blessed to have supporting me with my music. So just like all musicians, when lockdown started, my calendar emptied. And I'd never heard of Zoom before. I'm going to be honest with you, I'd never heard of Zoom. I knew about Skype, and I knew that on Facebook you could stream live, and I'd seen a few musicians do some amazing things, but I'd never done that myself. I'd done a series of videos called "Here I Am in My Hotel," and they were just like little silly sketches about what I'd find in the hotels. I always used to find it amazing that these hotels would have those giant curtains with a wall behind them, or a bottle opener in a drawer riveted to it, and of course the trouser press in the wardrobe. Yeah, so I knew I could do Facebook Live that way, but I'd never really been brave enough to play any of my music live on Facebook, other than when someone else had tried it with me or something. The disability movement is very vibrant, and we're all saying, Christ, what are we going to do? How are we going to respond? And the first thing is a very human response, reaching out and connecting and just making sure that everyone is okay. And I think there's something in that as a musician, which is about touching base with your audience, and making sure that everyone feels a sense of belonging and a sense of comfort with your music, so that they can relax and enjoy it. And so there was that very real human need to make contact. So I got invited on this conversation, which was about how we're going to reach out to people who quite often aren't on the internet. And from that, somebody said, oh, could you edit that? And because they knew I had some sound editing equipment, and I used Logic Pro, and that crashed, would you believe? And so it's amazing when something crashes how much you learn about a piece of kit. So that's something that I realised that over lockdown I've learnt a lot more about how to use Logic, and particularly the shortcuts, to make editing a lot easier. And I thought, oh, okay, so I can do that a bit better now. My house is set up to be accessible for me, and I would recommend, particularly now, I think we're going to do a lot more work from home even as we open up. So I've spent a lot of time considering where all my gear is and how it's laid out. So anyway, a couple of weeks in, I was doing some editing for some podcasting, and soon enough the work was coming in, and they were saying, could you do a video, could you do some keynote talks about disability and music, or accessibility of music, and actually more and more about accessibility online. In so many ways, lockdown has made things much more accessible, but also it can still be creating barriers if access isn't thought. Things like the website, making them more accessible, making sure that screen readers can read them, making sure fonts are right, put BSL interpreters up. Access is really, really important for us all to consider. It's not just about disability, it's about engaging with your audience. But actually, I got it into my head quite quickly that I heard a few people say, don't treat doing a gig online like you would treat a gig in a pub or in a club or in a festival. Sort of shape it in the medium that it is. So you're in a little square box on a screen. So think about that. Think about how you frame it. Think about some lighting. But essentially think about the sound. Make sure the sound is good. So obviously I've got a really nice microphone. We did a thing, my background's in youth work, and my youth club usually go away on a holiday right at the beginning of when lockdown was about to happen, and obviously that had to be cancelled, but all the kids were so sort of gutted and disappointed they weren't going on holiday. We said, well, let's do a Zoom thing. Saturday night we always have a campfire, so I led a campfire sing-song with some of the other leaders. And we didn't know how it was going to go, but obviously we knew there was going to be latency and we all couldn't sing together, but it didn't really matter. What mattered was we were having fun. We were enjoying music and sharing stories and some call and response songs. And it didn't really matter that it was noisy and messy and you couldn't always hear everyone, or sometimes there was one or two people that were a little bit louder than the rest. You know, it was just great fun. So we had a campfire and people were sort of using orange lights, and you know, some people were out in their family gardens having a real bonfire, and it was just brilliant. And we learnt a lot about Zoom, you know, how to pin particular cameras so that the lead singer was always on people's vision and that sort of thing. So the campfire was just this really great introduction for me about what potentially you could do with Zoom in terms of engaging with people. It was shortly after that that I have a PA who comes in on a Friday who plays guitar with me, a guy called Dave Del Cid. And I said, look, let's just try it. Let's just do Facebook Live. And we used to do this thing with a guy in London called Andy Cracknell, and he used to do this thing called Bunk Off Early. And it was a thing at Covent Garden, and me and Dave used to play just a few acoustic songs, like half an hour set, 3/4 of an hour set, an hour sometimes if we got an extra pint. But anyway, Bunk Off Friday. And I said, let's do a Bunk Off Friday, but online. And it was Ian Jury's anniversary, and as you can probably tell, I'm a bit of a blockhead. So we did this Bunk Off Friday, and suddenly, like, people were listening in, and I think we got, you know, I think it was about 50, 60, 70 views, 80 views, and then it went up, and then within a couple of hours we'd had like over sort of 100, 150 views, and by the Monday it had gone up to over 1,000. And of course I realised it was because, you know, Ian Jury's fans are incredibly loyal, and because I've done Reasons to Be Cheerful, I've got a beautiful set of friends who support stuff that I do around Ian Jury. So Bunk Off Friday was a bit of a hit, and we thought, oh, that's something we could do every Friday. So we did it, and it just grew and grew, and every Bunk Off Friday we made loads of mistakes. We really struggled with the sound. We got it in mono and we couldn't get it in a stereo, and sometimes it would distort, and because what we heard in the house was very different to what the audience heard. So we had to learn about that, how you do a sound check online. And ideally having somebody else on another device in another room is really useful, just to give you a bit of feedback about how it's sounding. And we'd spend nearly 2 or 3 hours trying to get the screen right, the sound right, and then we wouldn't have any time to rehearse the set, and we'd just make it up as we went along. But every week we learned something new until probably, I don't know, week 7, week 8. We got the sound about right, and we learned to plug in a bigger mixer and do a pre-mix on that, and then take that down into the audio interface, so there's just one feed going into the Facebook stream, and making sure that's a stereo feed, so it's going through people's headphones properly, and, you know, just getting the right balance. And the sound does have a big impact. There was a couple of weeks where we had a terrible sound. It was just, there was a kind of a phasing going on that you'd spend fortunes for in a studio, but it was there and it was horrible. And that week we only had about 160 views, but as soon as you get the sound right, you're into the 500s, the 600s, up to 1,000. You know, I haven't got massive audiences, but I have got amazing people who come and listen, and it sort of grew. We noticed that it grew. And importantly, the thing that we learned about that was just engaging online, having conversation like you would in a club or a pub. So recognising names that were there and calling them out and having a conversation and responding to people and making connections, connecting and sharing and listening to what people are saying to you, trying to respond to songs that were being asked for, but also trying to keep some original stuff. So introducing to, you know, keeping my own sort of vibe real was really important to me. I started writing a lot more, obviously, as we all have done. Reasons to Be Cheerful went online, which was with a company that I worked with, Grey Eye Theatre Company, and that got me a lot of publicity again, and I got in some national press, and I got called all sorts of things that I needed to look up in the dictionary, like vituperative, which I was called by the Daily Mail, and I never knew what that meant, and I'll leave you to look that up. But anyway, the whole thing was about engaging with my audience in a different way, and connecting and just checking in and having fun and trying to look after each other a little bit, being very, very human. I got involved with We Shall Not Be Removed, which was an online campaign of disabled artists, and I helped to create a campaign, an online campaign, which trended for a day on the 17th of June. If you look back on the 17th of June on Facebook and Twitter, we trended on that day. And again, that was about engaging. All that was about putting up bits of work that we all felt really proud of in the disability arts movement, to show what a vibrant, rich tapestry of work we've got. Obviously, I've done quite a few keynote speeches in this time of lockdown. I did the Children's Media Conference where I sang and played. And again, that was just learning about my sound to an extra level. By now, I was able to use my interface and my mixer to its fullest, and, start to experiment with, making sure that I had the right amount of reverb on the voice. And it's really easy to go over the top with effects. So learning really to keep that under control was really, really important. And then I started to do some online festivals. Again, working out little ways like premiering on your YouTube video to make an event out of it, having watch parties, any way that is about engaging with people, but ultimately thinking about this as a new medium and just embracing it, owning it, and making it your own. Obviously learning from everyone that's gone before, and there's some great artists out there that I've learnt from, but also making it my own. And for me, critically, engaging with my audience, that's what it's been about. I spent maybe 4 weeks making grant applications, because that was my only way of getting some money in. So I applied to the Arts Council and PRS and Help Musicians UK. And I was lucky enough to get an Arts Council grant, which kept me going for a couple of months. And with that, I invested in my social media profile, including my FX Digital profile, which you can now see up there if you're a member of FX Digital. But also, I created a new Facebook music page and Twitter page, and also Instagram, even though my audience aren't really on Instagram, just as a kind of calling card. And I've been working with Shipshape Marketing to look at my social media brand, and that's all with guidance from Tom at Folk Expo, who I'm so grateful for, and for giving me this opportunity to make this video about how I kept my music alive during lockdown. I hope some of this has been useful to you. I suppose my message is go with the change. Don't wait for yesterday to come back, because it's probably going to be really, really different. And what will be, as a famous song goes. Yes, so embrace what you can do and celebrate what you can do online, and make it real, make it yours. Don't imagine that you are in this little box. Imagine you are reaching out and you're connecting, and have conversation with your audience. Respond to when somebody says something on your line. Welcome. I did a few polls as well. I did some Survey Monkeys about what songs people were enjoying and why they chose Bunk Off Friday and what their songs were. And we've now made some badges that we're going to send out to everyone that was on Bunk Off Early Friday to say thank you. Because I think it's really, really important that our relationship with people that support us is equal. I'm going busking next week online. I'm going to go around all the different platforms, and I've set up a PayPal Me tips pot, and I'm going to try it out for the first time. I didn't want to do it on Bunk Off Friday because that's not what it was about. Bunk Off Friday was about giving us all a little bit of joy and happiness and connection. But I'm going to go busking and see if I can earn 50p or maybe £1 and have a bit of a laugh. But I'm going to go around, I'm going to stream on Facebook, and then when that feels like that's dead, I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to spend half an hour there, and then I might go on Instagram and see what happens, and I might even shape some moves on TikTok. Who knows? But I'm going to try it, and I think that's what we've got to do. We've just got to keep trying new stuff and developing our material and embracing what's around us. And God, this is such a hard time, and people are living through some very, very difficult times, and there's some amazing people doing some amazing things, and I think musicians have got a role, and it's really, really important that even though gigs are being cancelled and we're not, you know, being able to play live in venues, and we're missing that terribly, we've got to make other responses, and those other responses are to do what we can do well, and that's make music and tell stories and engage with people. So anyway, I hope this video has been useful. I've really enjoyed making it, and I'm really interested in your comments, how you've kept music alive, and maybe some of your ideas of what you've taken from this film. So thanks to everyone, lots of love, keep safe. I think, you know, we've just got to keep online and you know, maybe play out in the garden, play in the bathroom. I don't know, maybe keep your trousers up. But, you know, play around the house. As my granddad used to say, when we used to play the old jigs and the reels, he used to say, around the house and mind the dresser. And I reckon everyone should do that. Cheers now. Bye-bye.